Welcome to the American Academy of Grief Counseling's video on spirituality in counseling. And this again is part of our overall series of videos for multicultural diversity in terms of helping those in grief from different creeds, different cultures, different values, different genders, and so forth. And it's important to have a good multicultural competence in when dealing with individuals. And creed and faith is no different. It's important for counselors to be aware of the role that spirituality plays in their client, as well as the role that their particular religion, if they have one, plays a role. And that involves counselors having multicultural competencies within the different faith experiences. This is especially important because spirituality is a universal human experience. And because of that, it is an essential part of mental and emotional health and something that cannot just be swept under the rug or ignored. Spirituality, hence, is important and it gives meaning, as we see with the works of Viktor Frankl and how important meaning is and how spirituality helps craft our life experiences and shapes those experiences to find a particular meaning in itself. Understanding someone's faith then and being culturally competent is essential because of the role that faith plays. This huge role that faith plays in someone's loss or grief or mental health. Now, obviously, spirituality can be functional or dysfunctional, and that will be something that we will look at as an important factor in the overall mental health of an individual. Now, unfortunately, sometimes many counselors are sometimes afraid to breach the subject of spirituality because of ethical considerations, especially within the secular counseling field. Past Freudian views that see religion and spirituality as something as a conflict to psychology need to really be ignored because spirituality is so important. So, as part of understanding a client from a multicultural competency standpoint, understanding their spirituality is important, and them listing what their spirituality or faith is important. It can just be a simple question, and if it's not a issue, then it can be forgotten and the therapy can continue without it. However, if a counselor is to come across a particular client who is very spiritual, then that spirituality is going to have far-reaching effects into the entire physiology of the person and what they do and how they react and how they feel. So it's important then for counselors to become aware of the various religions, of monotheistic, polytheistic, those who are religious or spiritual, or of the various differences that exist within denominations. It's very easy just to put certain religions into one lump pile, but within each religion there are differences as well. Within Christianity alone, there's Catholicism, Orthodoxy, and Protestantism. And within Protestantism, there's a huge number of denominations, and some that are more spiritual than religious. Within Islam, there is Shia and Sunni. So the differences that exist are very numerous and also very diverse. Now, counseling and spiritual direction are something I think that are important to distinguish between each other. Outside of any pastoral paradigms, counseling and spiritual direction are two different things. So if one is not doing Christian counseling and spiritual direction, counseling is something very different. Counseling uses a client's spirituality to better understand and help with a particular situation. It's helping the counselor understand how spirituality affects the individual's life to help them understand the individual and to help the individual heal. While in spiritual direction and Christian counseling, sometimes moral and spiritual advice is given in itself. So counselors should not feel at odds asking particular faith-related questions to understand their client, but they also have to understand that spiritual direction is something that takes on a more faith-based role in helping shape morality and conscience, not so much with counseling where it's used to help understand the actual individual. Now, as I stated, there can be functional and dysfunctional spirituality. So religion and spirituality can play both a positive and a negative role in healing. And we see that in other videos that I have done. Just very quickly, while religion and faith usually is very beneficial, it can sometimes become dysfunctional as well when core beliefs are challenged by loss and trauma. So helping individuals as a counseling standpoint with your multicultural competencies is important to help the individual utilize their faith and spirituality to balance with the trauma and the loss itself. Faith can serve as a very important anchor to individuals in trauma and in crisis itself. So if that anchor is lost, it can lead to a lot of anxiety, doubt, anger, as well as depression. So as counselors, utilizing spirituality, we have to see if it's functionally being displayed within the individual or dysfunctionally, and to see how it is as a tool helping the individual and to utilize that spiritual tool to help others. Now, bear in mind when spirituality is dysfunctional, it can lead to scruples, guilt, and failure to live up to expectations. So unhealthy spirituality can cause many problems to health. So again, I want to emphasize it's important as counselors to help lead those who are not meeting the standards that they feel with their religion to look at those issues of guilt, look at those issues of scruples and how they are affecting their overall mental health itself. Of course, there are more benefits, I believe, of spirituality with the individual in helping the individual recover with that worldview. And it's important to utilize in counseling in terms of helping the individual heal. Again, it's not spiritual direction. So when one spirituality plays a big role in counseling, then the counselor is invited to help utilize it. Since spirituality is part of multicultural counseling, it can lead one to resources and aids within that one particular person's spiritual community. These outside sources with permission of the client are sometimes critical in helping someone. Those within spiritual cultures, such as Native Americans or various Eastern religions, that they might have communities that the counselor can utilize to help an individual through spiritual resources that are unavailable to the counselor by themselves. In addition, many spiritual rituals and prayers can help individuals find healing. So it's important to encourage clients to utilize their faith rituals so that they are able to find that anchor in moments of trauma, crisis, and loss itself. Understanding that spirituality helps one understand motives, views, and belief in loss is very important to helping the client. So spirituality sometimes is the key to the actual puzzle. It shouldn't be seen as something negative or a source of bias, but it should be seen as a tool and as a key to help the client find the particular healing that he or she may need. So as part of multicultural counseling, understanding spirituality and sometimes using it or not using it, depending on the situation, is something that needs to be considered, applied, and not to be afraid of or considered as something taboo to counseling and psychology itself. Below is our grief counseling link, as well as our spiritual counseling link. Our number is 330-652-7776, and our email is info@aihcp.org, and our reference, Counseling Across Cultures, is also listed at the bottom. Please remember to subscribe to our channel. I'd like to thank you for listening and have a good day.